I'm sure not. Come on, Daryl, don't get me in trouble.
Carl's been around long enough. He's seen worse things.
I think Carl should. Are they doing what? No, which one?
But it's the demolition contract.
Oh, yeah, no, they were supposed to be. We need to hear back. Is out sick.
Right. So I guess it would.
So yeah. Did we hear back?
No.
Okay.
No.
Is all this imagery from?
Refurbished, which he refurbished.
Oh, it's amazing.
Institute in Hayesville. He'll do an open house from time to time.
Yeah. I just can't make it whenever I have it. Yeah. We just. Is Jody coming, Barrett?
I believe she's getting some coffee.
Well, it is 9:30 and this is the Board of Commissioners for Richland County. I am Darrell Banks, Richland County Commissioner, with Cliff Mears and Tony Vero, fellow commissioners. Joining us from the press today, we have Carl Hunnell and from the Source, and we have Archie from WMFD, and is Al on the phone? Yes, Al is on the phone from Mansfield News Journal. And we have Barrett Thomas from RCDG Chamber, the whole works. And also we have Ann came back from the future. You haven't quite got there yet. But Andrew Keller, who will be our county administrator starting on Thursday, is joining us for this talk about economic development.
One way for Jody.
We will do some other while Jody gets here. He'll be here by then. So can we certify the record of proceedings for November the 2nd?
So moved.
Seconded?
Thanks.
Yes.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes. And can we approve requisition?
So moved.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero,
Yes.
Mears,
Yes. Okay, we have I'd like to approve a utility permit located from Everstream on Darlington East. And there's about 250 feet of line, which will be in the right of way that will be buried there.
So moved.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
And we have we'd like to approve a lease agreement at Longview with 1888 Ohio Comp. They are reducing their space. We have these here that we would approve and get signed.
So moved.
Second.
And they also, Mr. Newbert called yesterday, emailed Chuck and Commissioner Banks. In the space they're vacating, they have 12 workstations that they are offering to the county. We do not take them. They're going to dismantle them and throw them away.
Free of charge?
Yes. So I'm going to have Chuck go out and look at them when he's back. And then if we want them, I will have Mr. Newbert put that in writing. He's giving them to us. And we'll go from there.
Good. Thank you for the update.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
And we have a resolution for WIA services with Richland County Area Chamber. Guess that's
They're here now.
here now.
So moved.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
And last thing I have on here is to authorize advertisement for a CDBG Plymouth project.
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Okay, we've been joined by Jody Perry from the Chamber, and we are going to have quarterly economic development. Bring us up to date.
Before we get started though, Daryl, it's a big day, you know. Someone's birthday who's presenting right now.
Is that right?
Is indeed. I know you can't believe it, but I'm turning 30 today.
What do they say? Age before beauty, because someone else's birthday is tomorrow. So my birthday.
Yes, thank you.
It is.
Yeah. So age.
That's why I was a couple minutes late.
Well,
Good celebration. Couple.
Right.
How old today, Jody? 29? And not just because
45.
your birthday today.
Yeah.
Today is the first game of Mike Krzyzewski's 42nd and last career with Duke University in Madison Square.
Boy.
It is a big day today between Jody Perry and Mike Krzyzewski.
I'm honored.
The great ones.
I'm honored to be on that level, quite frankly.
So you are our Madison Square
I
Garden.
think you're higher than that. It's only basketball.
Right.
One last ride with
Oh, I thought it was football.
No, it's basketball.
There's only one true sport, as we know.
Tennis.
it ain't NFL, I'll tell you that.
Tennessee. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to actually hand things over to Barrett for the bulk of the report. But, in conjunction with your support of the Chamber and Economic Development work, we wanted to come today to give an update on, what has been happening this year. You're going to hear a lot has been happening. A lot of it, about and have heard, but we took what we have been reporting out to the Richland County Foundation for the past 5 years in our partnership with them, made some tweaks to it, tried to bring a little bit more value and be able to share the story of just what's happening in Richland County right now. I mean, obviously coming out of the pandemic, there's still a lot of challenges that we're working through. I was in a committee meeting this morning with our advocacy committee talking about a myriad of issues. And it's just like every issue is very complicated right now. It just feels like there's just a lot of moving pieces and parts. But certainly a bright spot is the fact that, businesses are continuing to expand and move ahead. We're still seeing a strong pipeline. So I wanted to, give Barrett a chance to talk about that. And just a little bit of background on, how we come across these projects and, just how that all comes to pass. So Barrett has been our economic development director with RCDG for 5 years, almost 6. Yeah. So I believe you all know him, but yeah. So Barrett.
So this is a report that's got metrics in the front and a narrative on the back that I think helps describe the work that we've done and how what we do fits together. Sometimes economic development is difficult to understand, like what are the pieces that are happening and how is this helpful? So hopefully this kind of fleshes this out. On the front side where the metrics are, so we've got input metrics, which are number of businesses that we're going to visit and responses to opportunities. So specifically business attraction opportunities. So that's kind of the 2 buckets. So business expansion, companies that are already here and their growth, and companies that are not here, we're attracting them into this county. The attraction projects are much harder to pull off. You might have a 1% chance on some of those projects. It's difficult. The 80% of the metrics, the outcome metrics come from companies that are already here. So the business retention and expansion visits really help uncover that stuff. Then you've got output metrics. And so these are kind of broken out by quarter, number of closed projects. So a project is going to be some expansion. It's going to be, and we capture those in these next 3 metrics: the number of new jobs, amount of new payroll associated with those jobs, and total capital expenditures. And then at the bottom, we've got how many active projects are happening at the end of the quarter in that pipeline. So that active projects number is normally, 4, 5, maybe 8. This year has been off the hook. So we have so many projects happening right now. It's difficult to keep all the things going, but that's what you pay us for. So, on the backside is a narrative where I'm kind of breaking the work up into 2 main categories. So preparation work, like all the stuff we do to get ready for those outcome metrics. So this is really based on sites, which could be land, could be buildings, understanding those properties so that when someone calls and says, hey, we're interested in a 150,000 square foot warehouse, what do you have? We go, I have it. Here are pictures of it. Here's video of it. Here are all the information you're going to need. Floor thickness, number of doors, ceiling height, all that kind of stuff.
And for the developer for that, I don't want to call it a box warehouse, but is the intent to lease that or to build to sell?
The one at the airport, that one specifically. I think they would like to lease it. That's the model that they prefer, but they've got lease pricing and sale pricing and a lot of interest. So the preparation work is on sites and in relationships. So we need to know all the people involved in development so that when companies respond and go, yes, we're interested in building on 97 and 71, we know who to call. And then the other side of that is kind of as we talk to companies or have site selectors or commercial realtors saying, hey, we've got companies interested in this, or we go visit companies and they say, yeah, we're ready to expand. That's the kind of activity in response to companies and opportunities section. So we don't, so just to level set, so we don't want to take credit for things that we don't do. We don't create jobs. So all the jobs that are reported in this metrics list, those are all companies creating those jobs.
What do you mean by you don't create jobs?
I don't create the jobs. The companies are creating the jobs. And what we do is make the path easy for that to actually happen. So it's got to be a company saying, we've got a growth opportunity. We can hire more people. We can add this new product line. They're creating those jobs.
Okay. So when you say
Not on our
create
payroll.
jobs, obviously you're not hiring is what you mean. You're meaning in its most literal sense.
Yes.
Okay.
We try to create or influence the environment so those jobs can be created and clear barriers that are up in front of it.
So with that being said, then, which makes sense, right? I get that part. But if you go back to the metrics, and glad you touched on that. How do you guys determine or get the data to say, okay, we have 127 new jobs committed?
So that's a good question. When we work with companies, we set up what that project is going to be. It's going to be, we're going to add a 20,000 square foot warehouse. We're going to fill it with these machines that we need X number of people to run, and we're going to run them in 2 shifts. We're going to need a daytime group and an evening group, and we need X amount of power. We need all this stuff. We kind of flesh out what that's going to be, and then that gets solidified in the project. And they tell us how many jobs they're going to create with that, what the payroll is associated with those, and what the CapEx.
So if I can expand on that further. Now,
No, go.
so I'm looking at those metrics. New payroll committed is annual payroll, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so for example, in Q3, if I take $125,000 in new payroll, divide by the 5 jobs that are committed, that's $25,000 per job. Divide that by 2080, which is full time, that'd be $12 an hour. That doesn't sound right.
That's what that one particular project was.
Okay.
That may be the one of the lower position projects we've got.
Okay.
And
So-
honestly, I don't know.
Part-time as well, if they were part-time jobs
It's
or something,
supposed to be broken out as FTEs.
50.
I don't know that company will end up hiring at $12 an hour, because I don't know that you can do that today.
I'm gonna say we just bumped our kennel attendance up to 13.
Yeah, that's why it
Yeah.
raised my eyebrows. And I look at Q1, Q2. Q1 would be about a $36,000 annual salary, and Q2 would be a $42,000. So okay, I accept those. Q3 seemed to be quite a drop, but that averaging out, if I take 4.86 million divided by 127 jobs, that's about $38,000 salary, which seems reasonable. Yeah. Okay. I just want to clarify.
And so this is what business owners are willing to commit to when they close a project. And several of these have Jobs Ohio money, so they're making this commitment to Jobs Ohio that we're going to create this number of jobs, be at this pay rate, and they're looking at a 3-year timeline. So if they started that project, they're counting jobs in 21, 22, and 23. So Jobs Ohio has a 3-year outlook for job creation. If we started a job, if we start projects now, they would probably get this last month and a half for free, and then they're looking at job creation by the end of 2024.
So the 80 people here, if they started all at the same time, talking about 24 before they have the 80 on.
Potentially.
Yeah, and
That's how long they have to meet the metric.
Okay.
yeah,
In some cases, it can be much quicker, depending on, when a building, especially if they're doing like a physical expansion, probably if the
Because
building is up and running. Yeah.
You mentioned lots of projects. I know you can't tell us all of them are, but what kind of fields are they in? Is it manufacturing, warehousing?
yes. So a lot of them are manufacturing logistics. That's what I spend most of my time on, because of the local economy multiplier is higher with those industries. There's so many of them expanding. So it's interesting when I go talk to companies, they are mostly all interested in expanding. They're interested in more space. They're interested in more people. Both of those are obviously difficult but they're also running into these supply chain problems where they are. Yeah, so I was just at a company in October last month, and they're saying they're buying metal from their metal supplier, which is 95% of what they build, and they're buying stuff in October of 22. So it is a full 12-month lead time for the raw materials. So they are sinking a bunch of what would be fluid working capital into inventory to, put a down payment on that so that they actually get the stuff in next October. And then they got to pay for it when it shows up. And so they've got tons of money sent in inventory, which is increasing the amount of stuff in the building, which then means they need more warehouse space. There's a lot of kind of compounding issues like that where
It's a domino effect.
more space, there's not much commercial industrial space that's left. So there's a lot of projects, a lot of physical space, a lot of automating basic tasks that they can't keep employees in those jobs because they're not exciting. And we can automate those things and make that faster. And then those people can do higher level work, which I'm interested in because they get paid more.
What about availability of labor? Are you hearing stories about concern?
I hear a lot of stories about that. So Clint is much more able to speak to that. He's actually putting a video together today on kind of the state of workforce. There's a bunch of factors in there. We thought the unemployment money was keeping people at home. I think it said today there are fewer people on unemployment today than before the pandemic. But we have fewer people in the workforce now than before the pandemic. So
What does that
It's a
mean?
combination.
it is.
Without going political, right? What are some neutral reasons for why that may be? So what you're saying is we have less people on unemployment, but yet less the available jobs, there's less people working, right? So what's driving that in your guys' world? Because you see it probably more than we do, right?
One big factor that really isn't being discussed a whole lot, but needs to be, is that the pandemic did push a lot of people to retire early. Earlier than they were probably intending to. So there's some numbers of people leaving the workforce that are not coming back. I think there has been a challenge, particularly, with women that have had to leave the workforce for childcare reasons, things like that. Now, the most recent numbers kind of indicate that maybe there's some shift happening and returning on a national scale, which would certainly be helpful. I also think we're seeing a lot of shifting in the workforce itself. So maybe if people were in a food service, line of work and their job was maybe more vulnerable than they thought, maybe they're switching into some other things. But there's certainly other factors at play. But I think those are a few big things that we're seeing. And I do think this is going to take years to really kind of shift out and even out. Hopefully some things can improve. Those are things that, we're trying to do on the local level, but I don't think there's a magic thing that we can turn to just make it go back to what it was.
Another thing that we have found out recently, and people come in and talk to us about it, that the federal government is not only sending money out to unemployment, which is coming to an end or has come to an end.
Has ended, yep.
But guys, so we got $11 million more this year of people that help with heating and housing and different things to help people out. They got $11 million more to give to people. And I would think that would have some kind of play. I have no idea how much, but some kind of play. So it's kind of hard not to get political on these subjects when it's
There's certainly money out there. I had a conversation yesterday with someone who called me about some of the transient issues. I don't know what you would call those organizations, but I was told they have so much money that they're willing to just assist. And I think we're talking about that same organization. So obviously that's a factor. I don't think it's the only factor, but I think it's a factor that there does seem to be a lot of money out there besides just unemployment. Okay, that's interesting.
I was going to ask about small businesses, the mom and pops. How are they doing?
I don't have a whole lot of time to go talk to those companies because we're calling on the industrial companies. Jessica does more calling on those companies in Shelby than I do. So she might be a better person to ask, but I think from conversations with her, they, depending on their industry, they seem to be doing fairly well.
Talked to a few of them in the last week, and I had one woman who she told me it's the best year they've ever had. It's a small family operation that well drilling, and then can't get enough help though. And then of course I talked to my restaurant friends, and that's a whole different situation.
That's why we did grants.
Right. Yeah. A lot of the small business conversations are happening, more on the chamber side of the house versus the economic development side. But yeah, I think it's a very odd time just in general because it's feast or famine. And, since we were here to announce the grants, I've been contacted repeatedly by a number of food businesses that are really struggling, and looking for that. And then we have also had conversations, most small business owners want to say it kind of behind the scenes and quiet. It's like, well, I hate to say this, but we're having a great year. It's been record. And I think, I don't know if it's like they're afraid to jinx themselves or rub it into other people, but that's happened. And that has happened certainly with the larger businesses too, where, not everyone was equally impacted by things last year. Some were deeper, some were more immediate, some it took longer for them to see the impact. And again, like it just feels like everything has been shaken up. And while it kind of settles down, all these, things, these smaller fires pop up and then we have to kind of pull together and look at how we put them out.
I know someone in the alcohol and tobacco sales business, we'll call it the quote unquote sin sales business.
Uh-huh.
And they had a record year in 2020.
Yeah.
Because everyone was at home. He's like, I had a great year last year. I was like, I'll bet you did.
Jobs Ohio owns the liquor business.
Oh my God.
And they had absolutely record profits
Yes.
in 2020.
So the good news is, from the state perspective, they have money to put into economic development and all of these things. So
when you celebrate this great economic development report, drink liquor, not beer and wine. It's
Just
economic
there are
development.
just a couple more questions. So any reason, and again, I understand new jobs are new jobs, but any reason why we don't distinguish between new jobs with an existing company and new jobs with a new company?
So if it's an attraction company, if it's an attraction project, they're not in Richland County at all, and they come and locate here, then all of those count as new jobs.
Right, but what I'm saying, so on this report,
on here,
say new jobs committed, how would we know, us three and then Andrew, who will be involved in this, whether these are new jobs at a company that's already been here in Richland County, or let's say new jobs that come into the box warehouse, et cetera, et cetera?
You can ask. Happy to tell you.
Okay, and then we'll just,
So let me, I think all of these are current companies.
okay. And then how do we,
It's normal for an economic.
yeah, sure. I mean, but it'd be interesting to know if we have any new companies coming in.
Yeah.
And then something that was important, and maybe you guys can answer this. I don't know how you measure this, but how do we measure net new jobs? Meaning new jobs coming in, great. But if we're losing more that are coming in, how would someone in the economic development field measure the net?
For the whole county,
Yeah,
it's exceptionally difficult.
I would imagine.
Along those same lines, I had a discussion with the owners of the mall
Mhm.
yesterday. A year ago, they had 44 businesses operating in the mall. Now they have 31. Obviously a net loss.
Jody, how do your friends in the chamber world measure that?
I mean, what I would say is we just need to identify a source that we're going to look at repeatedly. I mean, the state tracks, State Department of Development does track employment numbers, at least on an annual basis. I'm not sure if they're updating it in between. The difference would be you'd want to compare that year to year because, how we're tracking things like we talked about earlier, there's potentially up to a 3-year runway for those jobs to get added, you know, whereas the state DOD is saying, you know, last year you had 50,000 jobs and this year you've got 51,000. And maybe all of these new jobs aren't in place yet. So I think we can identify, I mean, there's sources to track that is what I'm saying. And, you know, we can identify that and you just have to figure out, are they published annually or quarterly? You know, some of those things, maybe more of a once a year update, and that is an absolute good point, you know, and something that Barrett hit on earlier in terms of automation, we're going to continue to see that pick up because of the shortage of workers. Like there has been this factor happening, you know, not just here, but certainly here where, you know, you could spend a lot of money for a new piece of equipment that's going to automate, or, you know, you've already got people on the floor and they're doing it and it's less expensive that way. Well, that factor has changed a lot. And so it is making employers, I think, look at automation, which is gonna cut job numbers, right?
That as this labor,
So
they are taking harder looks. at
yes.
automation.
So the opportunity though is, you know, a lot of those things that they're automating are maybe the more basic entry level, lower skill things. So, you know, that's where the partnership, you know, through JFS and the training dollars that comes in, that Clint is out working with, are really important so that we can take those employees that, you know, so they're not stuck and left behind, that we can skill them up into higher paying positions. And, you know, from what Barrett's, you know, sharing and Jessica's hearing the same thing, there are potential projects that could happen, but for more employees, right? And employers could have other opportunities. So, you know, kind of helping them work through this will help long-term, you know, bring up jobs numbers. So, but again, like everything, it's like this, it will not necessarily be just a complete 2 steps forward. You know, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back right now, but the movement is certainly more positive than it's been for quite some time, I think. So.
Yeah, thinking about automation and deployment, when I talk to companies and they are adding new equipment, almost always that new equipment has more automation than the previous iteration. No one's hiring fewer people. Like they're adding this equipment and they're hiring people.
Mm-hmm.
So those all go together. If we look at total employment for the county, I mean, there's other macro factors involved, like people leaving the workforce. And so there are going to be fewer jobs, you know, or fewer people employed if there's fewer people working. So, but my goal is to keep our companies as competitive today and going into the future so that they are financially strong, can keep employing people.
So real quick, I know we're over our time. We're gonna have a couple cancellations, and we don't need a grapes of wrath analysis, but what do we do well in Richland County, in your guys' opinion, as people who are at the front lines in terms of attracting economic development, and what do we need to do better?
So like on the preparation side, I think we've done a fantastic job this year of adding more data, having more information that companies are looking for ready to go on the website. You know, we've got great videos highlighting properties so that when companies are looking and they go, you know, we could go any of these places. What do you have? We've got a video that they can go, oh, yeah, we could see ourselves there. That makes a huge difference. I mean, you just have to like get that attention so that they can look at your community because you have a property that fits. And the marketing for that makes a difference.
And by the way, we've had companies call us based on that and say, we saw things on your website we're interested in. And those are things coming outside of the Jobs Ohio leads that we get. So those are all positive things because they're coming directly to us.
Yeah. That in the collaboration we have between our organization and all the other organizations that touch economic development here in the county and in the surrounding counties. I mean, the SEDS is a good example of a cross or multi-county effort where we're all working together because we all face similar issues and we're all going to have fairly similar solutions. So we're working together to make that happen. I think the thing that would help move us further ahead is having more sites in the right places with the right infrastructure, and site control. I mean, site control is a huge part of being able to successfully land a project. If you and I are negotiating and you're going to bring your company here, but she controls the land, I can't make that deal happen. Site control is a big deal. So we've lost projects by not having site control.
I would say, yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, we've heard through, Team NEO, which would be our regional economic development partner, and from others that, our county has a good, in fact, I would say a really great reputation on the collaboration side from in a lot of ways, but particularly from economic development. Like we have good relationships with our elected officials and the governmental offices that touch this. Between all of the cities and the counties that have work, our utilities partners. So when those barriers come up, and we're probably now at a point where this has been happening for some time. So we're comfortable in this, but there are other communities not that far away that do not have that strength, and it really does make a difference. And I would absolutely agree with Barrett on the sites. I mean, that's going to be one of our key focus points coming up. We're just launching a new 3-year strategic plan and site development. You have to have something to sell, right? To be able to bring businesses in. And there's some really good opportunities out there right now that we think, we'd like to leverage and take advantage of. The other thing I would just mention, since we're here, is I still think that there is a driving narrative, not from leaders, but of, that manufacturing is dead. And you still hear this, on the comments on online and social media, and like that there's a bunch of empty factories sitting around. And, I would invite people to take a closer look because, there has been moments in time where there were a lot of empty buildings or more empty buildings, but most of those have been filled. If they are workable at this point. They may be warehousing, at this point or something, but, we're at a point where there's such strong interest and demand that, 5 years ago, even that building wouldn't have been touched because it was cheaper to build new. But now to go into a building and retrofit is a big thing. And I think that, there is still 10,000 plus people employed by manufacturing in this community. It's still the backbone of our economy. And I think, anytime we have a chance to highlight that and all that it's doing to help propel us forward is a good thing. There's certainly a lot of reason to be optimistic about, where we're headed as a country on manufacturing. There's a lot of opportunities because of this supply chain fiasco that I think we'll probably see some trickle down effects. And we would like to be at the table and say, hey, Richland County has a great place for you to locate. And we're ready to make that pitch.
Okay. So Barrett, get to know that handsome guy in the back, Andrew Keller. He's going to be kind of our point person on a lot of this. Whether you guys determine we need to meet quarterly or whatnot. I mean, I think it's as we work through this, but Andrew starts Friday. He's going to hit the ground running, and then Jody will be working with him closely on ARPA. So,
and if you would like, I mean, we'd be happy to, bring Clint and or Jessica from time to time, on these to give kind of some of their updates as well. So we'll plan to do that.
okay.
So.
Let's see if we got any. Carl, you have any questions?
Just a couple. Barry, you were talking about cooperation. How would you describe your relationship with Tim Bauer, Sauk City? You guys communicate on a regular basis. What sorts of successes have you had?
So I've known Tim the entire time I've been in Mansfield. He was actually on my interview panel at Braintree like 12 years ago or whatever. So I've known him for a long time. We work really well together. Like all the calls that we go visit, when we're visiting companies in Mansfield, we're going on those together. we represent different resources that we can leverage for companies. So he can do things at the municipal level. I do things with Team Neo and Jobs Ohio and Magna and some of the other groups. And so we kind of layer those resources together to help companies out with projects or issues that they face. We talk on a regular basis and like strategize about, so if we fill up Airport West Industrial Park, where are we headed next? How is this going to work? So kind of the specific company things, project specific, and the overarching strategy. And, we also meet with Jody and the mayor, and the four of us sit down and talk about state economic development, where we need to go.
Now, I think everybody was kind of surprised last year when that National Economic Development magazine came out and had Mansfield as a top 10 city for projects. Are we on pace to maybe do that again? How would you compare? Obviously, last year, I think there was 6 or 7, but they considered sizable projects. How are we this year compared to last year in terms of those efforts?
So the trick on projects is when they close and getting them in the right calendar year to count for what you're trying to achieve. So I've got far more projects in process now than last year. It's the same thing at the regional level with, same thing with Jobs Ohio. Companies are expanding and we are kind of maxed out on our capacity to handle all the projects. But it's all a partnership with each company and kind of working through the process. And when they close makes a big difference on when we can count them as a win and they go into that Governor's Cup process.
We're just at the point actually of submitting our data for that. So their Jobs Ohio kind of organizes that statewide.
And can I get a copy of your matrix with your report from today? That's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Okay. Right ahead, Al.
Yeah, I hear you talking about, a lot of companies doing warehousing, for various reasons. Do you see this part as a move? And I know over the years, businesses have gone to a just-in-time manufacturing. Are we moving away from that back to the old traditional where, you do warehouse some projects, some products, so you have some, and this would avoid the supply chain problems we've had?
Yeah, so the supply chain issues have blown up the just-in-time model. So the just-in-time works when you're at the top of the food chain, like as a auto OEM, and kind of, everyone else holds some inventory so that you can be just in time. I'm showing you with my hands, but you can't see them. Sorry about that. But that only works when global supply chains are real smooth, and that ship has not sailed, I guess, which is the problem. And so now everyone's holding a lot more inventory so that you can keep your customers, even though the other thing they're doing is having long lead times. So when you would have ordered something and it's a 3-week lead, it might be 30 weeks now. And now, everyone's ordering more stuff so they can have stuff when they need it. It's kind of a mess. So.
But is this the kind of thing that Jody was talking about, things are going to end up taking a couple years to shake out. Is this one of those things that you see, shaking out again and getting back to what we used to do? This the thing that's going to take time?
This is going to take several years to figure out where we're going to land, whether it's back to a just-in-time model, hoping that all the supply chains are smooth and we add resilience into the supply chain system, or if companies are going to say, we're not going to get caught like that again. So we're going to hold inventory. We've got major employers here in town that have operated on that basis in normal situations where they say, we want our customers to have a high level of customer service. We're going to hold a whole bunch of inventory. So it could go either way. As a macro economic trend, but each company is going to make their own decisions on that.
So it kind of depends on the kind of company, their financial situation, and a lot of different variables.
Yeah, and like the demands of their customers.
I do think you're seeing your point about the resilience of the supply chain. That I think will drive some of that. I think, there's discussion about onshoring again, because I think a lot of industries realized how vulnerable they are to some of these things, much more so than people realized. How that, it's hard to predict a long-term trend yet because we don't know if this is a long-term impact or just a short-term thing. But I think you will certainly see some people choose to bring things closer. And again, that's an opportunity for us and other local economic development organizations to take advantage of, is to get that stuff located in your community. So
I didn't hear the answer you gave Carl. Carl asked for a copy of that. Are you willing to give that out? Is that?
Yeah, we can get that to you.
I can
Yeah,
email.
if you would. Yeah. The other thing, in addition to that, can you give any kind of general figures about, number of jobs, potential jobs you're currently working with right now, and in numbers of companies, without giving any details of any specific companies or anything?
Yeah, so I've got probably 17 active projects right now, which is a crazy number. I mean, that's, 3 or 4 times what it would normally be. Those companies haven't all given me job numbers for their projects, so I don't have a real number, but it's going to be 600, 800 jobs. But that's if they all happen. And this is economic development. So if half of what I work on happens, I'm doing really well. So there's lots of ideas and people talking about stuff and, hey, we could do this. So it's very speculative at this point, which is why we don't give real solid numbers.
Yeah, and I understand that. Companies change their minds very quickly sometimes on stuff. I've seen that happen over the years. Okay,
it's safe to say
what I was
potentially hundreds. Yeah.
Pardon?
I said it's safe to say potentially hundreds of jobs. So.
Yeah, I was just looking for an approximate, thing that you're working on. So, to me, I don't know how the public sees it, but to me, just a couple hundred jobs is very encouraging to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the only questions I have.
Okay, thanks, Al. Thank you for coming over. I'm sure Archie's getting set up there to ask you some tough questions. Appreciate you coming over, and good report.
Thanks.
Continue. We're looking at 15 of the 17, not this half stuff.
15 of the 17.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Me too. I think every one of them could happen. That's why I work so hard on every single one of these projects.
Scheduled next week. So, thank you all.
Okay.
Great. That'll happen.
Congratulations. Yeah, look forward to working with
Are you leaving us?
We're not that important anymore, huh? Story of my life, Carl.
Trip over it.
Story of my life.
Can I email it to you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm up.
Taking a recess? Or you just,
Let's take a 5 minutes.
okay.
It is 10:23. We are back in session, and we've been joined by Michelle Swank, Director of the Day Springs, and we're going to talk about her budget for Day Spring. So where you want to start there, lady? I've got in front of me Fund 108. Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, that's our main operating fund.
Right.
I think it's pretty much straightforward. The only thing I thought you might have a couple questions on was our repairs land out line item. There's quite a bit of money set aside, but I have quite a few projects that I hope to get done next year. We have our rather large nursery station addition. That was the one that we got the $250,000 of block grant money from the COVID pandemic, the CARES Act. Dayspring has $50,000 set aside for the architect fees as well as any overages that happen. We also have a rather large sum of money set aside for our paving project, again with CDBG funds. That project doesn't have to be done until 2023, but I would very much like to get it done in 2022. I've had experiences in the past where weather has caused an issue with paving, as well as bid late in the season one time, and I only had one bidder. I want to avoid that, to have it done in 2022. And then, of course, in order to get our roof less expensive asphalt rather than the slate, we agreed to start repair on the laundry boiler house. So some of the money, about $49,000, I've set aside for that project and that line item. And then a few thousand just in case. That was the big one I thought that you might have questions on. And if you have any other questions for me.
Well, I would have had questions on that. I was surprised how much lower the roof cost was than what we originally talked about. So we're getting a lot more for our money, I believe.
Yes, I was very excited. We the original estimate for the asphalt shingle was $400,000. It came in, I want to say, just under two or right around $200,000. And we had $100,000 from block grant money, and then by the time that it was around $120,000 that we received from it. So that was very exciting. Yes.
I took a look at how much you budgeted for gas, which was less than last year, and utilities is about the same, and contingencies was way down. Have you budgeted enough for those items?
I believe so. At this point, the gas is down because it's dependent upon how large part of that is how many appointments we take the residents to, and then also how many activities we do with them. So since they've been around the building quite a bit and we've just been doing country drives, I've lowered the amount of gasoline. As for the utilities, that's always a little bit of a interesting thing. We usually spend more money in the beginning of the year than we do toward the end. So right now I can see that we're going to have what you might call it, a plus in those items. So I've just put the money in different places where I think I'm going to spend it. Like whether you want to say it's due to the pandemic or due to just cost of normal things, I'm more concerned with the food and then with the cleaning, supplies cleaning. One of the largest things that I'm seeing that is not coming down are the gloves. Normally a case of gloves would cost us $35. Now they're costing us anywhere from $90 to $135 a case. So the money is now actually sitting there. And if I need it toward the end of the year, I can move it. I don't see the gloves coming down. And it would be horrible if they stay that way, but you absolutely have to have gloves in a facility like ours.
Question. The history. Pay off a loan. Last expense item, transfers out loan.
Yes, we finished that off in 2021. We took out you'll have to excuse me, that was before I was the director. We took out a loan to renovate the bathrooms and then also to redo the windows in our house. We have over 200 something windows. And
This loan is over.
December 1st is our last.
Yeah, it looked like it's even amount, but it looks like it, when was it taken out? It was like prior to 2014
Uh,
or 16?
yeah, we had a 5-year. We borrowed money from ourselves, from the treasurer. I think it was 5 years. Once it was said and done.
Yeah, the first year looks like 66,000. Every other year, about 30,000.
yeah, I became the director of Day Spring in 2015, so I had inherited the loan. And the way, if I remember, the way it was set up is you determine which year, how much payments you were going to make. And a lot of the bulk of the cost actually fell toward the end of the loan that I was kind of trying to make up for. And then I think the county went ahead and set specific numbers for the payments for the last how many years of the loan.
Yeah, the last 5, yeah.
Yeah, so those last 5 payments were based on that.
It's
5 was with.
what you're saying, windows.
Windows and bathrooms.
On the personal service schedule.
Mhm.
Heard what your, now, Cliff, you might not be aware of this, and correct me if I'm wrong. Shell normally gives her increases out.
The union contract usually has in the past ended in January 1st. So the increases have usually gone through January 1st. The non-union employees usually do July 1st, simply to make up for any kind of issues in the budget in case I don't have enough funds. With the new union contract we have, the contract is now switched from January now to June 15th. So all increases would be happening right around the same time, either in June or July.
So I noticed that comparing it to the wage study, several that are pretty high on, to the max, but I don't know how many years they've been there. So that's probably why they're there, I assume. We had a couple that were above the maximum, so probably need to discuss how that's.
I show she has lump in for.
The 3 that were relatively high were nurses. And as you know, I've had an extremely hard time hiring and keeping nurses.
We also just, and again, we have to be careful with how we say this. We also just increased the director of nurses salary quite substantially.
Yes.
So, I'm curious as to your thoughts on, generally speaking, after a substantial increase, there aren't additional monies given. So I'm curious as to your thoughts as why you put that in, or just your overall thoughts.
Well, with the wage study, as I read it, it said if you are going to give an increase, rather than doing it the way that I'm, as you might say, used to it in the past, you would be doing it as a lump sum. And I didn't want to not give some type of a increase or monetary, I'll call it reward, but monetary,
Incentive.
yes, to not only stay, but to show, thank you for the hard work.
I agree. 2020 was challenging. It's just something to,
Especially,
especially Day Spring. So I'm okay.
yes, especially with the nursing situation.
Right.
And again, I have budgeted amount, and that's under the assumption that I will have all of the money to make it happen. Obviously, if I don't, I will be back here.
Looking at, I would say Small Steve is okay, because she's got the longest seniority, and the manual says, hey, if you have, because generally when you start a new position, you're supposed to come in at the entry level, but the exception being your expertise and service. So I'm okay with that. But I'm having trouble following the position of office manager. So you're in the position of evaluating, her position, correct? So I agree that at least as of now, that position needs to come up, to the entry level, right? We've made a commitment to do that. So if I do that correctly, it's a 5% increase right off the bat. Wouldn't you then look for additional increase once you have the new PAQ? Or how did you come up with, I'm having trouble following, and again, you look at the position, not the person.
Right.
Are you just budgeting for that amount, presuming the PAQ will come up to that pay grade for the new position, or?
From what I understood, and maybe I misunderstood, that if I had the funds in order to keep the people that I have, that I was trying to get them toward the middle number.
That's
Rather than the,
progress through your career though, right?
well, then maybe I didn't necessarily understand. Because I was trying to get the people toward the middle.
She's relatively new. And I agree, we need to bring that person up. This person started in April of 2020. So
The amount that she was hired in as, I had wished it was higher, but I was kind of, my hands were a little bit tied considering somebody else who had already been there longer and at a different higher position was already making a lower amount than I thought that necessarily they should be making. So it was one of those situations where I couldn't bring a brand new person, less responsibility and higher than somebody who already worked there how many years, more responsibility. So I'm not exactly sure the best way to handle that particular situation, because now I have given her more responsibility and more, which is why I need the new PAQ, because in the kitchen, my food service manager has quit, and I'm going to replace her with just a full-time cook, and I have moved the managerial portions over to the office manager job. So that's why I need a new PAQ for that. So but right now she's already doing the job.
I would talk to HR again. Because again, a relatively new employee shouldn't be brought up to the midpoint, generally speaking. You know, I can understand Sherry Smallsty, who's got 30 years of experience, give or take, which shows you in the manual, but the manual is pretty clear here if you look at it. New employees shall normally be hired at the minimum rate for their position. Obviously, this person is not. We need to get that person up. And then new employees who possess outstanding qualifications and experience may be hired up to the midpoint. So generally, as a new hire, you should start at the entry level of the range. And considering that, and again, I'm not taking this as a statement on how, because she does an excellent job, but you're working on adjusting the position to get more money as she's taking on more responsibilities. This is exactly how the scales are supposed to work.
So you'd move her up to the minimum for where
If you
she's
want to
at
give, if you
now,
want to, you know,
and then the new PQA. Right?
yeah, if you want to, that's my thoughts. And maybe you do a little more than the $1.07 because of what everyone had to go through with COVID and Dayspring. I think that's understandable and justifiable. But then the additional monies come as the position is reevaluated, in which the scale will change and the manual dictates how much more money a person should get. That would be my thoughts. So if we could resubmit that or get with Daryl on a recommendation, that would help. Those are the questions I had on the salary side.
But then the other, I've never had to budget a lump sum before. Is that how it was supposed to be done?
Yes, but make sure, again, as I said before, needs to be a lump sum based off a percentage of the employee's salary so that they get the necessary OPERS contribution. Get with the auditor's office on precisely how to do that.
I remember I did see,
Correct. And I'm still struggling here, Michelle, as to how you entered this. Okay, so let me make sure. The hourly rate should stay the same on the lump sums.
yes, I believe that's,
That's
Yes.
correct. Okay.
and then the lump sum. Again, the way that Dayspring is, they would not receive the lump sum until the end of the increase period, which would not be until, if they were getting a regular increase, it would happen July 1st, 2022. But you're not going to give them the entire increase July 1st, 2022. Because everybody else who is slowly having their increase would get it as they work through the year. So I don't know when the lump sum would actually happen.
It would coincide with when the pay raises take place. They're all at the same time.
So then they would get it all of the money July.
Now, Pat's not going to do a separate check. Our manual says separate check. That's fine. He can do it all in one check. Okay. But on their check, it will be a lump sum of, let's say I make 20 grand, right? And then you give me X percent, then it'll just show a lump sum bonus or a payment for that percentage.
So they'll get all of the money at one time.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you look like that's,
Well, okay. So if, let's say I'm giving two employees 1%, and 1% increase. If I'm giving the 1% increase to the lump sum person, they're getting all of the totality of the money.
not getting the raise on their salary. So it is a give and take.
I guess I'm just trying to understand it because it's a new concept for me. But if this is how it is, then that's,
I mean, that's what I guess not.
So she's saying, so someone who gets 1% on per hour, it's really a year before they see that whole increase. But the person you're giving a lump sum to, they're seeing it on day one.
Right.
So you're giving them, the way she's looking at it is you're giving them
In advance.
in advance.
Yeah.
and if that's how it is, that's
Sounds-
Yes.
Yeah.
How it is.
okay. Well, okay.
It's the good and bad, right? There is a little bit of an advantage. You're getting the money up front per se, but you're also not getting the increase on your salary.
But you're still getting the money.
Right. But you're
I think you're going to have to explain this to me a little bit. Okay. HR is not my forte. And I'm ready to learn.
Ready to move on to 803.
yes.
Go to 803.
That one is the 803 was created as a grant fund. And at this point, we normally receive a few grants, through Gimbel Foundation, Richland County Foundation, received a few through the Higher Foundation and even Shelby Foundation through the years. At this point, I do not budget any money until I actually have received the money. 2020, we did reach out to one of the foundations, and they were very aware that Spring has a very healthy carryover, and pretty much made it known that since we have a carryover, that it would not look favorably for us asking for money. So I did not expect put anything in there for money. It doesn't mean I won't try later on, but that's why that is where it's at. I still have $20,000 sitting there that needs to go toward ramp and doors for the activity room ramp. And hopefully I can get that project done in 2022.
I don't have any questions on that.
Nope.
And the last one, 380.
I'm sorry, that the 380 was the grant.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. The 803 is the residents Dayspring Gift Fund. That is all donated money in some fashion. That also has our vending machines, the expenses and the profit from it. Which again, the vending machine is doing a incredible job bringing in income for Dayspring. During the pandemic, I have actually been, instead of going on trips and things and buying things to renovate and do certain rooms in the house to enhance their lives, we've been buying Kentucky Fried Chicken, Long John Silver's, Leaning Tower Pizza special meals, and doing things like that. So the entire resident body can enjoy it. Yeah. So I had planned to purchase another set of machines, which I have enough money in there to do it. I was actually going to do it last year, but then, well, so hopefully I can get those bought this year.
Makes sense. So. Any questions? Nice work as always.
Thank you.
Al, you got any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, thanks, Al. Okay. Questions, Michelle? Thank you for coming down, and we'll get together and discuss those things.
Okay.
And it is 10:45. We did have a couple other appointments scheduled, but people that scheduled them with us are unavailable. So if someone else has some other, we will stand adjourned at 10:45. We are adjourned. So how's